sat in the front row every Sunday, tie straight, Bible open, hands folded. Everyone saw a young man headed for ministry. No one knew what he did when he got home. His name was Elijah, and from the time he was old enough to sit still in a church pew, the expectations were already being built around him like walls. He grew up in the kind of church family where faith was not just believed, it was performed. His father was a deacon. His mother led the women's Bible study. His grandfather had been a pastor for 40 years. Faith ran in the bloodline, and everyone assumed Elijah had inherited every drop of it. By the time he was 17, the whispers had already started. That boy is going to be a youth minister someday. You can just see it on him. And Elijah played the part well. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't party. He led the youth devotional when the minister was out of town. He knew scripture. He prayed with confidence in group settings. He was the young man other parents pointed to when they were disappointed in their own children. He was the standard, the example, the good Christian boy. And he hated how hollow it felt. It started small, the way most things do. A late night, a phone in a dark room, curiosity that crossed a line it couldn't uncross. He told himself it was a one-time thing. Then it became a twice-a-week thing. Then it became something he didn't have a name for, something that lived in the space between who he was at church and who he was alone. Elijah had developed a hidden addiction, and within a year, it had grown roots so deep he couldn't remember what life felt like before it. He tried to quit, dozens of times. He would go 3 days clean and feel like himself again, feel like maybe God hadn't completely given up on him. Then Friday night would come, the house would go quiet, and the pull would be stronger than his willpower, every single time. He began to live in a cycle of sin, shame, and Sunday morning performance. Saturday night he would fall. Sunday morning, he would shower, put on his church clothes, and walk through those double doors with a smile that cost him everything. During worship, when the music swelled and people around him lifted their hands, Elijah would bow his head, not in reverence but in shame. He could not lift his hands. He could not open his mouth to sing. The words felt like lies on his tongue. How can I praise you when I was just doing that last night? He watched the preacher with a kind of envy he couldn't explain. He watched the older saints who seemed to carry a peace he had never touched. He sat in the pew and felt like a fraud, a carefully dressed, scripture-quoting front-row fraud. And the worst part? He was too afraid to tell anyone. What would his father say? What would the church think? The boy they were grooming for ministry, broken in the most private, shameful way imaginable. He could not bear it. So he buried it deeper and smiled wider and let the walls of his bedroom keep the secret while the congregation kept the expectation. It was a Tuesday in November. Elijah had just come out of another cycle, another fall, another round of shame that sat on his chest like concrete. He was sitting on the edge of his bed in the dark, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't reach for his phone. He didn't try to sleep it off. He didn't pray the quick, guilty prayer he had learned to rush through. He just sat there. And something in him finally snapped open. He slid off the edge of the bed and onto his knees, not as a habit, but as a collapse. And he began to cry in a way he hadn't cried since he was a child. Not polished tears, not quiet sniffling. He sobbed. He pressed his face into the carpet and he sobbed. God, I am so tired. I am so tired of pretending. I'm so tired of fighting this alone and losing. I'm so tired of sitting in your house and feeling like I don't belong there. He confessed everything. Not in a general, vague way. He said it all. Every detail, every failure, every night, every excuse he had used to delay getting help. He laid it out before God like a man emptying his pockets after years of carrying stolen goods. And then he said the words he had been most afraid to say. I cannot fix this. I have tried, and I cannot do it. I need you to do what I cannot. He stayed on that floor for a long time, and the room didn't fill with light. No audible voice came from heaven. Nothing miraculous happened in a cinematic sense. But something shifted. Something that had been locked inside his chest for years quietly came loose. He felt, for the first time in as long as he could remember, that he had been fully seen, and that God had not walked away. Surrender was not the end of the battle. It was the beginning of a different kind of fighting. Elijah had read the scripture his whole life. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. 1 Peter 5:8, ESV. But it wasn't until he examined his own patterns that he understood how the enemy had been reaching him. Every single time he had fallen, the door had been the same. Idle time. Late nights with nothing to do, empty hours on a weekend afternoon, the silence of a house where boredom and loneliness had learned to point him toward the same dark corner. He understood something for the first time. Idle time was not neutral. Idle time was a door, and he had been leaving it wide open. So he made a decision, not in his own strength, but as a partnership with God. He would fill the open spaces. He started waking up 30 minutes earlier every morning to read scripture, not as a performance, not to feel holy, but because his mind needed something to hold on to before the world started pulling at him. He began volunteering at his church's food pantry on Saturday mornings, the very morning that had once been his most dangerous idle time. He served with his hands, so his hands would have no room to wander. He found an accountability partner, not in his own church, where reputation still felt fragile, but a young man from a Bible study across town who had his own testimony of hidden struggle. For the first time, Elijah said his sin out loud to another human being, and the shame, remarkably, lost a portion of its power the moment it was spoken. He put his phone on the charger in the kitchen at night instead of his bedroom. He started going on evening walks and praying out loud during them, quietly, to himself, just talking to God the way you'd talk to someone walking beside you. None of it was glamorous. None of it was overnight. There were still hard nights. There were still setbacks that made him want to give up. But there was a difference now. He wasn't fighting alone, and he wasn't fighting to earn forgiveness. He was already forgiven. He was fighting from a place of grace, not toward it. The change was gradual, the way a season changes, not all at once, but in small daily degrees until one morning you step outside and realize it's warm, and you don't remember when the cold left. Weeks passed, then months. The pull of his old addiction grew quieter, not silent, not immediately, but quieter, like a voice in a room where the music had finally been turned on. One Sunday, about 8 months after that Tuesday night on his bedroom floor, Elijah stood during worship and lifted his hands. Just like that, without thinking about it. And when the words of the song left his mouth, they did not feel like lies. They felt like the truest thing he had ever said. He was not the performance anymore. He was not the expectation. He was not the perfect front-row Christian boy holding a secret behind his teeth. He was a young man who had been broken and found, and was standing, imperfectly, gratefully, genuinely, in the presence of a God who had known everything all along and had never once stopped loving him. In time, Elijah did become a youth minister. Not because his family expected it, not because he had to prove something to the congregation, but because he had a story now, a real one. And the teenagers who sat in the chairs in front of him every Wednesday night were carrying secrets of their own. He could see it in their eyes, because he had once worn the same look himself. And he would tell them, with all the gentleness and honesty he wished someone had offered him, "You don't have to be perfect to come to God. You just have to come. Who can discern his errors? Forgive my hidden faults." Psalm 19:12. David wrote those words thousands of years ago, a man described as being after God's own heart, and yet a man deeply familiar with hidden sin, private failure, and the weight of a life lived partially in the light and partially in the dark. He didn't ask God to excuse his hidden faults. He asked God to forgive them. Because David understood something Elijah eventually learned too. Hidden sin does not stay hidden forever. It grows in the dark. It feeds on isolation. It gains its greatest power from the silence we wrap around it. The enemy does not need to destroy you publicly. He only needs to keep you secret. He only needs to keep you alone. He only needs to keep you convinced that what you are doing is too shameful to bring into the light. Because the moment you bring it into the light, his hold on you begins to break. If you are sitting in a church pew right now, living a double life, carrying a secret that is slowly hollowing you out from the inside, this story was written for you. You are not too far gone. You have not used up all of God's patience. There is no version of your failure that surprises him or exhausts his grace. But you cannot overcome in your own strength. None of us can. That is not a weakness. That is the design. We were made to need God. And the moment we stop pretending we don't, the healing can finally begin. Remove the idle time. Replace the empty hours. Find one person you can be honest with. Get off the floor you keep falling on and onto the floor of surrender. Because God is not waiting for you to get clean before He receives you. He receives you so He can make you clean. If this story touched you today, consider sharing it with someone who might be fighting a silent battle. You never know who might need this reminder, that God's grace still reaches hidden places. And if you'd like to hear more real stories of faith and redemption, subscribe to Real Christian Stories. God bless you. And remember, no one is ever too far gone for the grace of God.